Hello everyone, back tuning in today's first video. We're doing JMA Friday for today's first video. So as always on a Friday, we're having our month-ahead look ahead with the Japanese and CFS V2 models. This is going to take us just into the beginning of May. So we'll see what the CFS and the JMA have got to say about the weather for next month very shortly. Just say that coming up later on this afternoon, we're going to have your regular week to 10-day video update, as we have all the usual features, of course. Right, so begin JMA Friday with the JMA long-range model, and we're going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomalies, broken down into weekly periods, looking at the North Pole view down. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here. And the mid-latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere are around there. Yellow, orange and red extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure. Blue extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure. These are the mean flow charts for the next month. So these are broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 5th through to the 12th of April. So the coming week has an area of above average height sitting to our north, a big area of high pressure blocking from Scandinavia over towards Greenland and Iceland. And then there's below average heights indicated by these blue colours to our south. So low pressure is running from the Atlantic into central and southern parts of Europe. And that's bringing the wind in from an easterly direction. So easterly winds will be very cold setup if it was winter, because it's middle of spring. It's not going to be overly cold, but it will be chilly and probably getting a bit colder actually through the course of next week. More on that in today's second video update. This is how things are looking in week 2. This is the 12th through to the 19th of April, and we're taking those areas of above average heights to our northwest. So we're retrogressing the high pressure from Scandinavia over towards Greenland and Iceland, with low pressure underneath it in the middle of the Atlantic. That could well be pulling in colder air from a north to northeasterly type direction. A fair amount of dry weather, you would have thought, with the Atlantic blocked off, although southern and southwestern areas always at risk of the low pressure in the Atlantic, bringing some rain at times. But overall it just looks quite cold and dry with that sort of scenario. Some perhaps quite damaging late season frost could be expected there with the high pressure up over Greenland. Then we go through to week 3 and 4. This takes us from the 19th of April through to the 3rd of May. Bit of a change, a high pressure then slipping southwards, so we've got above average heights then centred over top of the UK, below average heights developing around Greenland and Iceland, and so the jet stream is pushing back northwards again. So this is a much more spring-like pattern, I think, as we go through into the final 10 days or so of April. We go to a much more spring-like pattern. High pressure slips down over top of the UK. We push a jet stream northwards to the north of the high pressure, and so it will stay pretty dry. The signal here for April is very dry, I have to say. High pressure always in control, just varying in its position, going from northern blocking to a mid-Atlantic area of high pressure, or a mid sort of latitude area of high pressure. But the upshot is we're probably going to a drier and warmer, more spring-like spell for the final sort of week to 10 days of April, and then into the start of May. Bear in mind that's a 2-weekly anomaly, so it might be a bit transitional. It's possible that week 3, for example, might still be a little bit cold and blocked, but overall that does look much more spring-like there from the 19th of April to the 3rd of May. Let's confirm all that with the tropical and mid-latitude view. So British Isles is just here in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you are looking at it on this view for week 1. 500 millibar height anomaly. You can't see the pole, by the way. The North Pole is off the chart up here, but of course we're just looking at that view, so we know what's going on. We know we've got high pressure blocking to the north of the UK, with low pressure down to the south, and we're bringing in easterly winds for week 1, the 5th through to the 12th of April. So temperature anomalies are coming out a little bit colder than average, particularly so for England and Wales, perhaps a little bit above average for Scotland and Ireland. Overall, it does look like like a fairly chilly week, though, coming up. Precipitation anomalies are drier than average in the weekend, particularly to the north of the country. But most places coming out a little bit drier than average. So quite dry, but fairly cold in the week ahead. Moving through to week 2, the 12th to the 19th of April, we take the high pressure from sort of Scandinavia and we centre it up here over towards Greenland. Again, that's off the map with low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, and it looks like we're probably pulling in quite cold northeasterly winds. Let's see what temperature anomalies do. Well, actually, it lifts up a little bit surprisingly, perhaps, for week 2. It's middle part of April. Look like it should be quite cold based on the 500 millibar height anomaly. It looked like it should be pulling in north to northeasterlies there, but the temperature anomaly is actually a little bit milder than average. I still think based on the 500 millibar height anomaly, it will be quite cold up to the middle of April. As far as precipitation is concerned, again, drier than average. The Atlantic is blocked off, although some rain threatening to the southwest and west of the country at times, perhaps. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which is the 19th of April to the 3rd of May, with the high pressure events centering over top of the UK, and the jet stream is pushing north. So this does look like it should be a drier and a warmer couple of weeks, and that's what model is going for. Temperature anomalies lifting up very nicely there, going milder than average by around 1 to 2 degrees above average. So spring returns properly through the second half of April, if that's right. Precipitation wise, it remains pretty dry. That's because we're under an area of high pressure, so quite chilly to start off with. And I think week 2 does hold the potential for colder weather there, despite what the model is showing with its temperature anomaly. I think weeks 1 and 2, first couple of weeks of April, likely to be quite cold, but then the second half of April, weeks 3 and 4, definitely looking like spring is coming back quite nicely. Let's see what CFS V2 has to say about all of this. So again, these are 500 millibar heights, and I broke it down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 5th to the 11th of April. The coming week with below average heights blocked off in the Atlantic and going down into Biscay, Spain and Portugal, with a blocking area of high pressure up to our northeast over Scandinavia, and so we're bringing these east to potentially southeasterly winds there. And then we go through to week 2. This is different to what the CFS is showing. This is the 12th to the JMA, I should say. This is the 12th to the 18th of April. We don't take the high pressure to Greenland. We just keep it over Scandinavia. Low pressure is in the middle of the Atlantic. That looks dry and quite warm. We'll be pulling up southerly to southeasterly winds with that. So this second week of April, up to middle part of the month, if you like, causing a few problems within the model output. The JMA wants to take that high pressure towards Greenland. CFS says no, we keep it over Scandinavia. Have to say, it does look as though the shorter range models, the GFS and the ECM, and we will talk about this in today's second video update, the shorter range models look as though they want to turn things colder next week and indeed take that high pressure to Greenland, but more about that in today's second video update. Then we go through to week 3, which is the 19th to 25th of April. The high pressure is still there to our east, low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic. Now we're pulling up very mild, maybe even quite warm southerly to slightly southwesterly winds. And then for week 4, we build the high pressure over top of the country. It's the 26th of April to the 2nd of May, above average heights, then over top of the country, low pressure up here. And that's proper spring-like weather. The CFS today is going for a much warmer scenario compared to what the JMA is showing. So this is the week 1 temperature anomaly with the CFS. It's the 5th to the 11th of April. It's milder than average. Quite surprising what's going on there, because the next week does look quite chilly to me, although it is going to be a bit milder over the weekend into the start of next week. It looks like later next week we will pull down colder northeasterlies. Then we go through to the 12th to the 18th of April. That also coming out milder than average. Week 3 turns really warm. This is the 19th, 25th of April. That goes much, much warmer than average. And then week 4, which is the 26th of April to the 2nd of May, that one also going significantly warmer than average, not just for the UK and Ireland, but through most parts of Europe as well. This is showing to be a very mild, if not quite warm month, if the CFS is right. We have to say these temperature anomalies are looking over the top, particularly for the next week or two, based on what the shorter range models are showing. But we can only go by what the CFS is showing on the day. We're looking at it, and that's what it is showing today. Precipitation anomalies on the 5th to the 11th of April. Dry for the north, a little bit wetter than average to the south of the UK. Most places having near normal precipitation for week 2, the 12th to the 18th of April. Week 3, a little bit above average with precipitation for the north, close to average elsewhere. And then week 4, the signal getting weaker, of course. It's the 26th of April to the 2nd of May. That's close to average. But with high pressure centred over the top of the country, you'd expect a pretty dry week there. So you've got problems really here. Starting as early as kind of like the next week, actually. So the CFS wants to have a really warm month of it, and even the first week, week 1, with above average temperatures. The JMA is suggesting something colder for week 1. And in terms of the 500 millibar height anomalies, week 2 causing all sorts of problems, do we retrogress a high pressure to Greenland like the JMA wants to do, and if we do, we would pull down cold north to northeasterly winds. That's what the shorter range model output is going for. Or do we just keep that high pressure to the east, northeast, and bring up these balmy southerly, southeast winds? The CFS looks a bit odd to me today. I'd go more with the JMA, particularly in light of what the shorter range models are showing. So I think we still go with the idea that the first half of April is likely to be quite chilly, maybe cold at times. The second half of April, I think spring does get going, and we bring up these milder winds and push a jet stream northwards. Overall, both models are in agreement on a fairly dryish signal for April after this unsettled and showery start. So we should just wait and see how it pans out. These long-range models, of course, are highly experimental. They are prone to chopping and changing, especially when you've got low sort of confidence, such as we have this week. They are in disagreement really from week 1, really from the coming week. They're disagreeing in terms of the temperature anomaly. By week 2, they are disagreeing in terms of their overall 500 millibar height anomaly. So I think we wait and just see how it pans out. We'll be doing JMA Friday again next week, of course, so could all look very different then. Come back later on this afternoon where we'll have your week to 10-day video update. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.